Hello everyone, welcome to Unit 22 of Oxford Word Skills. This is the second unit I'm teaching in English. I received your comments and I guess the majority of you are asking me to teach in English. And here it is. Let's get started. Alright, Unit 22 is also about adverbs. This is the second part, emphasizing and manner. Part A is about emphasizing. Emphasize is a verb. Emphasize. Emphasize. A synonym for that is stress. They both mean to say something in a strong way. According to Langman Dictionary, to say something in a strong way. For example, the teacher emphasizes the importance of studying every day. The teacher emphasizes, which means the teacher says this in a strong way. Like, you have to study every day. You have to study every day. Emphasizes the importance means the teacher is saying it is very important. And the teacher is saying that in a strong way. So part A is about emphasizing. Now let's read it. I hate being at home all the time, especially in winter. So naturally, I was really pleased when a couple of friends suggested a trip to the Canary Islands in December. All right, a few things here. Number one, after hate, we use ing verb. I hate being. Being is the ing form of be. It's the gerund form of be, right? Being. I hate being at home. I hate working on the weekend. Next, we have the adverb especially here. So especially with an E, right? It's different from the other especially. This one has an E and we don't start it like specially. No, this one is especially. Especially. So what does it mean? More than usual or more than others. Very good. Very good definition. More than others. A synonym for that is particularly. Now listen to my pronunciation. It's tricky. Particularly. 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 Especially. Especially. More than others. So here it says, I hate being at home all the time, especially in winter, which means winter more than other seasons, right? More than other seasons. Winter, especially in winter. Let's continue. So naturally. Next adverb is naturally. What does it mean? In a way that you expect. A synonym for that is of course. Or we could say normally, right? Naturally. You've got to repeat after me. Naturally. So naturally, I was really pleased. You remember, pleased means happy. When a couple of friends suggested a trip to the Canary Islands in December. So which islands? The Canary Islands. The Canary Islands, which belong to Spain, right? It's always warm and sunny. So back to naturally, right? Naturally means in a natural way, in a normal way. So when my friend suggested a trip, I was happy, right? I was pleased. Let's continue. It's obviously an expensive time to go there when the weather is so good. But actually, we managed to find a cheap flight and a hotel in our price range that was perfectly acceptable. So the first adverb here is obviously, which means in a way that is easy to see or understand. A synonym for obviously is clearly. December is obviously an expensive time to go there. when the weather is so good. But actually, so the next adverb is actually. Now, we could pronounce it in two different ways. We could say actually, or we could say actually. Both pronunciations are correct. It means a word you use to introduce a surprising fact. Very important. A synonym for that could be in fact. In fact is more formal, or in actual. In fact is more formal. So when you want to explain something which is a little bit surprising, you could use in fact, or you could use actually, which is more informal. So obviously this is a very expensive time, right? But actually, so I wanna explain something which is surprising. We managed to find a cheap flight. Okay, so manage to is an expression which means to be able to do something successfully. So if you managed to do something, you were able to do it successfully. And here it says, we managed to find a cheap flight. It means we were able to find a cheap flight successfully. And a hotel in our price range. Now pay attention, hotel. The second syllable takes the stress. Hotel. In our price range, very important. If something is in your price range, it means that it is within the budget or the financial limit that you have decided for yourself. So let's say, for example, you have $1,000 and you have decided that you are able to pay $1,000 for example, an armchair. You don't want to pay more than that. You know that this is in your price range. So if something falls in your price range, it means that it is within the budget that you have decided for something. So you have $1,000, an armchair is $900, then it is in your price range. And finally, at the end of the sentence, we have perfectly, right? Perfectly, which means completely. That was perfectly acceptable. It was completely acceptable. Next sentence, I specifically asked for a room with a sea view, so I was disappointed to find myself in a dark room at the back. All right, so the next adverb here is specifically. You need to repeat after me. Specifically. What does it mean? If you ask specifically for something, you want one particular thing and not any others. So you ask specifically for something. I want this one, not anything else. Specifically this one. So here it says, I specifically asked for a room with a sea view. This means that I was very clear when I said I want this and nothing else. I don't want any other kind of rooms. I want a room with a sea view. So I was disappointed to find myself in a dark room at the back. So, this person asked specifically for a room with a sea view, but then they gave him what? A dark room at the back. Eventually, they found me a room with a balcony. Eventually means after a long time and often after some difficulty. So, after a long time and after some difficulty, that is eventually. Eventually or eventually. Eventually or eventually. Both pronunciations are correct. After a long time and after some difficulty. Like in the end, they found me a room with a balcony. I heard later that they simply offered another guest a big discount if he would move, which rather embarrassed me. So the next adverb here is simply, which is a word you use when you want to show how easy something is. A synonym for that could be just. Simply just. They just offered another guest a big discount, like 20% off, 10% off. And that embarrassed me. We had this one before. I had a good time, though. Though here means but we use it at the end of the sentence, right? So I had a good time. It could be like this, but I had a good time. Now, instead of that, we say I had a good time though. And people use it a lot in real English conversations. They use though at the end of a sentence to show surprise, and it means but. I had a good time though. I hardly moved from the beach all week. Hardly means almost not. Very good definition. Almost not or only just. Almost not is better. I hardly moved from the beach all week. Almost not. It means I almost didn't move from the beach all week. For the most part, I stayed at the beach, for example. I would recommend the area for a great winter break, but not necessarily that hotel. So recommend means suggest. Suggest. The area for a great winter break? Not necessarily. So what does it mean, not necessarily? Possibly, but not definitely or always true. Not necessarily, maybe not. So I would recommend the area, like the place, for a winter break. That's a good area. But not necessarily, but maybe not that hotel. Not necessarily that hotel. So let's move on to part B. Part B is about manner, which means the way someone behaves, manner. Now let's read the sentences here. He shouted at me angrily when I refused to move my car. So there's a picture here you can see. He shouted at me. Now keep in mind, shout at somebody is more out of anger, so when you're angry, you shout at someone. But sometimes, for example, your friend is on the other side of the street and he can't hear you very well, you can shout to him or her. Shout to is okay, no problem, no anger. You just want the other person to hear you. But shout at is out of anger. You're angry at someone. So he shouted at me angrily. Angrily is an adverb, right? And what is the adjective? The adjective is angry. So we made this adverb out of an adjective, angry and angrily. So when I didn't move my car, he shouted at me angrily. With anger. There's a spotlight here. Let's read it. It's important. Some adverbs tell you how something happens. They are often formed from the related adjectives. So how something happens. So we add ly at the end and they become adverbs. For example, polite is an adjective. Politely is an adverb. Bad is an adjective. Badly is an adverb. Angry is an adjective and angrily is an adverb. They usually go after a verb but can go before participles too. For example, I drove carefully. So carefully is used after drove. Drove carefully. What's the adjective? Careful. Carefully. I drove carefully. She spoke quietly. What is the adjective? Quiet. Quiet becomes quietly. Last one. The food was well cooked. So cooked here is a past participle. The third form of a verb, cook. Cook, cooked, and cooked, right? So here we use well, which is an adverb, before the past participle here. Let me remind you that we use an adverb, to describe a verb. It's very important to know that, right? So for example, I drove. How did you drive? Driving is a verb, right? How did you drive? Carefully. I spoke. Speak is a verb, right? Speak is a verb. How did you speak? I spoke quietly. So adverbs describe verbs. Next sentence. My parents are happily married. Happily married. So again, happy is an adjective. Happily is an adverb. Now, something that happens here is happy ends in Y. So Y changes to I-L-Y. It happens with almost all adjectives in English. Happy, happily. Angry, angrily. So my parents are happily married. And you can see here that married is a past participle form, right? Happily married. Next, Ollie's horse died suddenly, so we were all quite shocked. Suddenly means quickly and when you do not expect it. Ollie's horse died suddenly, like nobody expected it so quickly, and we were all shocked, right? Next sentence, when we left the house, it was raining heavily. So again, heavily, right? Heavily, raining heavily. What is the opposite of heavily? It's lightly, lightly. So here it says it was raining heavily, a lot. Next, he spoke very calmly about his wartime experience, which was surprising. So he spoke calmly, calmly. And you can see that calmly is coming after the verb spoke, right? How did he speak? Calmly. It means in a way that shows you are not excited, nervous, or upset. You are not excited. It means you are calm, you are relaxed, right? Calmly. In a relaxed way is calmly. He spoke calmly. He spoke in a relaxed way about his wartime, time of war, his experiences in war. That is wartime. The opposite of wartime is peacetime. Peacetime. It's the time that everyone is in peace. There is no trouble, there is no war. Next, the new marketing team are now working quite effectively. Effectively. Repeat. Effectively. 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 Effective is an adjective. Effectively is an adverb. How are they working? Effectively. It's just describing working, right? So effectively means in a way that gives a positive result. In a way that gives positive result. Effectively. So you work effectively. The team's work has a positive result. Next sentence. She speaks very clearly, so I can understand most of what she says. Clearly, right? Clear is an adjective. Clearly is an adverb. It means in a way that is easy to see, hear, or understand. So if someone is speaking clearly, you can easily understand them. It's clear. Oh, he's speaking, I can understand everything. It's clear. It's clear, right? Next sentence. The photocopier isn't working properly. I must speak to the engineer. The photocopier isn't working properly. Properly. It means well or correctly. Well or correctly. But this is, I guess, more a British word. Americans usually say right, okay? But you could also hear properly too, right? So properly means well or correctly. Next sentence, Sophia completed her studies successfully. Now she wants a good job. So you know successful is an adjective and successfully is an adverb, which means having got or done what you wanted. So to do something in a successful way. Successfully. She completed her studies successfully in a successful way. Next, Brad always asks very politely if he wants something. Politely. So we talked about this. Polite is the adjective. Politely is the adverb. It means in a polite way. In a polite way. The opposite of polite is rude, right? So polite, rude. And the adverb is politely. Next, the meeting was badly organized. So again, badly. How was it organized? Badly. It was badly organized. And you can see here, organized is a past participle form, and we can use the adverb badly before it to describe the participle form, right? So badly organized. And finally, they did everything very secretly. Nobody knew about it. So secretly means without other people knowing. A synonym for that is in secret. So they did everything very secretly, in secret. Nobody knew about it. All right, everybody, that was Unit 22. I hope you enjoyed it. please don't forget to like the video and share it with other people. Let me know in the comments what you think about this video. See you soon.